topic today is what is your church doing? I know that each of us have a different perspective, a different role in our churches. The church that we're at is different, and the things our churches are doing are different, and the way it's affecting us is different. And sometimes, I think the biggest killer in this whole quarantine world, this whole shutdown, lockdown, pandemic crap, is that we only see our own lane, we only see our own world, we only see our own room sometimes, and it's just, so this is helping us break out of that. So these are the three questions that I want us to each answer. Number one is what are your weekly, I'm gonna throw these in the chat, because I'm cool like that. I can do that here, chat, go. All right, what are your weekly gatherings like, number one? How is your worship and tech team involved or not involved? And then what is God saying about any significant shifts or any themes that you guys feel like God is saying to your church? So our church, actually this Sunday is the first week that they're meeting since mid-March. They had built, this is kind of a weird story, but they had built a new building, like a 1,100 seat building, like a big church building, which is nuts. It's like maybe 400 people that go to this church. There's usually about 250 people there. So it's really bizarre, but it's kind of like ideal for like social distancing, get the whole church in there, to still be the right size. Anyway, but I think they have, I can't remember what the limits are here. They have more strict rules right now. Anyway, so we're going to meet in this new sanctuary that we've never met in before on Sunday. And our team has been recording a couple of songs every week and sending them out. They pre-record everything and just send it out on Sunday morning. And then we've also been, as a team, we've been meeting most Wednesday nights on Zoom for like 40 minutes, the free version. So we have 40-minute meetings. It's so awesome. It's like a great built-in cutoff spot. Anyway, so, but that's been cool. We've been going through the book by John Piper. Is that the guy's name? Is that a preacher?
Yeah.
He wrote the book Desiring God, and so this is the book When I Don't Desire God. So his other book. That's what we've been going through, and each week different team members are assigned to share kind of what their deal is. Such a bad thought. Sorry, I'm talking to you, Jim. You look like a bad dude. Anyway, so we're going through this book together, which has been cool to have some point of connection. Look at Kevin. You see what Kevin's doing to you? You see what he did to you? These are the cherry or apple pies that he. It's like that. Who's that woman who had the candy house that like tried to kill the kids? That's what he is like to us.
Hansel and Gretel.
Is it? Yeah, that's what it was. There we go. Anyway, so that's how our worship team is involved. And I have the feeling like we had done a one of those choir videos, so to speak. Like everybody does a different part. So there's more people involved. I think there's fewer people involved now than there have been before. So I'm curious to see, once we start going back in. And I don't think you're allowed to sing here. Like they've made that a rule. And you have to wear a mask. I mean, they're really. You think Pennsylvania is bad? They're crazy sometimes here. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen at the end of things. And then number three, what is God saying, or any significant shifts or themes? I don't know what God has been saying to the church that we're going to, because I've been really bad at watching the recordings. I've gotten like 3 of them maybe out of the whole 6 months. because on Sunday mornings we go and we worship together with the staff at the base next door. So that's kind of been our church during this time. But well, I mean, I said this in the fertilizer the other week. I just feel like this is a moment of where God is saying he is so significantly throwing off what our plans were and like making them stop in the ways for sure that we were doing them. That there's this sense of like, y'all need to rest, let the ground rest for a bit and wait for my spirit to breathe on it and just wait, because it's going to be good. So that's, I've gone through a lot of different feelings and emotions through this time, in terms of like, what is God saying? I know he's saying something, but I have no idea, is kind of where I've been a lot of the time. But now I'm having a real sense of hope and expectation and excitement about what's next, as to the degree that we respond to what he's saying to us. So that was probably longer than wanting to talk to answer those three questions, but who wants to go next? Or if anybody wants to interact with something that somebody said before going on, that's fine too. But you can just check in. Go next.
I love what you said about how God is kind of restructuring we had all these plans, and we had, you have vision, and 2020, it's the year of vision. And I think the hardest thing is to go, did I get that wrong? Did we all get that wrong? And I don't think that's true, but I think we get to go back to God and go, oh, so what did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's true. So you want to tell us, Nicole, what your weekly gatherings look like, what your tech team is doing, your worship team is doing, what God's saying?
Yeah, I feel like we've just started over. We were meeting in the middle school. That's where we launched. And, you spend your first year or so trying to define your culture, but I think also trying to figure it out, and as much as you can bring whatever you can, but then people bring their own stuff too. And so you try to figure out, where are we compared to where we thought we would be when we launched. And when COVID hit, we got shut down, which was fine. We had already been renting a small building, and we were not allowed back into the middle school. So we're in this space that's just beautiful and gorgeous. And at one, our plan was one day to do like a 24-hour house of prayer in there, worship and prayer, because it's just beautiful. So we're there, and our weekly gatherings now, we were doing online for a long time. We decided to open, and then Emily, my daughter, got COVID. So then we said, well, we're going to wait like a month. So we waited about a month more, and now we're meeting weekly. We realized pretty quickly we need to do 2 services. So we're at Saturday and Sunday. We try to put up a live feed Saturday and Sunday. We started meeting again for prayer, a hybrid on Zoom, but also live on Wednesday nights. So that's what we're doing weekly for the moment. How is your worship tech team involved? Honestly, our head tech guy is Troy. I think this time has been really good for him because he's been super frustrated for a long time. And I think it's helped, like all of us, go, what am I doing and why am I doing it? So he has pulled back tremendously, which has been the best for everybody in the long term, because he had kind of a vision as to what things should look like. And I didn't realize how much pressure and tension that I had as a worship leader when I didn't follow the lyrics exactly, or, like all that stuff. So he's taken a seat back. It's been the best thing for him. It's been the best thing for us. We have a brand new board. We have a brand new system. We started with in-ears. We don't have them now. We do everything just So my team is struggling. I have two of them that are fantastic, but just emotionally and mentally, they're struggling hard. So I'm just really glad when they show up and they sort of know the music. One is an incredible pianist and the other one is a vocalist, and I'm just happy when she's there. I think it's good for her. My other keyboardist is giving input. I've been training him up. He's been great, but he just joined the Air Force. So awesome. And then I have a percussionist who is on once a week. And when he's on, I do all the like driving songs, you know. And I've learned guitar over this season. So that's taken a lot of pressure off of us as well, of just having to have somebody come in and try to teach our people like what is worship. And it doesn't have to be singing, but that's a hard sell. We go slow with that. So yeah, Matt and I are doing most of everything right now, and it's hard. It's really hard. And learning how to let things go and have people feel the pressure of it just not being there. I'm okay with that. What is God saying about any significant shifts? Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing is, what is church? And in a nutshell, I would rather now focus all my time on building people up and training them how to meet together outside of Sunday morning in 2 or 3, and reaching those who don't come to Christ. I feel like this has been a shift for all of us to go, the people that have been sitting on the fence in God's kindness have to make a choice, one side or the other. So we don't see a lot of people that we used to see. And we see people we've never seen before. And people are out of the habit of coming, and they're going to stay out of the habit. Is that bad? I don't know. Are they meeting during the week? That's the question. So my focus right now is something called DMM, which is Discipleship Making Movement, and being trained up on how to multiply disciples who multiply disciples who multiply disciples. That's my passion, because who knows what's going to happen in the future. Sunday morning was never supposed to be for us the focus, but it has been, because we've been, we're so brand new. So stepping back from that and focusing more on training up people to share the gospel in just really relational ways, I'm excited about, so that if we all go, the world goes nuts again, we're okay. Our people were not okay, and that was on us partly when quarantine hit. You know, like, Nicole, you're going to do this, you can do this online. And I'm like, whoa, we're to decentralize the church and put the work back on one another, so that we are training up one another for the work of ministry. That's our focus, I think, going forward. It's a big vision. We're baby stepping. Today's a good day, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's a huge statement. Decentralize the church to share the load. Yeah.
That's the end goal.
And I think,
You tick off a lot of people when you do that.
a lot of the church, most of the church, feels like, gosh, our people fell apart to some level. Not obviously not everybody. You know, there's a lot of people that were like, oh, what happened? Because and that points out that there was something not great.
Yes.
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah.
You guys, before, you had that huge amount of setup to do. Are you like glad about not having to do that anymore?
My gosh. If people come on time, yes. We only have a half-hour call now. Before we had like 2 hours, and people are like rolling in. I'm like, dude, you're killing me. But yeah, Kevin, it's so great.
And now those people that were helping before, are they anxious to still help in some other way now, or is their job done and so now they're in the weeds, or where are those people? Because there was a lot of them, it seemed like.
There were a lot of them. We don't need as much for setup. We do have some of the setup people are now on like CDC's duty, wiping down and everything. Yeah, a lot of people have been taking time off, you know, and that's okay. I'm not worried about, because we're staying connected with them. They still feel connected with DRC. We just don't see them on Saturday or Sunday. So that's super. So the next thing we're gonna do is send out a survey and go, hey guys, where are you at? We're just wondering, you know, do you still consider DRC your home? If so, how can we come alongside you? A lot of people are staying home. We probably have 2/3 of our people coming, which is interesting. 2/3 to 3/4 people show up on a Saturday and Sunday over the weekend. So
That's better than most, for sure.
I know it's strange, but we've also lost people. For some people, it's super kind to wear a mask, and we've had 3 suicides in Hummelstown. We have people that are deaf that come and they can't hear us. They if we wear a mask, it's impossible, and they feel very marginalized. So when people come, especially on a Saturday or a Sunday, we honor. If they're wearing a mask, we stick ours on. If they're not, we don't, you know, and we maintain distance and stuff. But it's hard, man. I mean, we're all, you know, anyway, I feel like I talked a lot, but we're all figuring it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a theme that we talked on another Adlibbing. Like, this is a moment, a great moment for experimentation.
Yeah.
Okay, try it. Never been done
Oh my
before. I know.
gosh.
It's okay. Try it. What a refreshing thing to happen in the church. It's awesome. Cool. Who wants to go next?
Well, we are still encouraging people to stream if they can stream. And if they can't, then they're welcome to come. Or if they really are just sick of not being able to come, they're allowed to still come. They're allowed to come. So just trying to keep it at 25 with, you know, what the governor's wanting. So we had opened up for a couple weeks until things went back down. So we do have an outside service the first Sunday of every month. And so that's awesome. So we had it this past Sunday, and we get a great crowd for that. Everyone loves it. You know, they want us to do it every week. It's a lot of work for the team, you know, for us to haul all of our stuff out there. And yeah. But they love it. So we'll do that until it gets too cold. We're thinking we'll be able to do October and November, but that'll probably be it. And then maybe then we can open up again. We'll see. Our pastor really wants to see what happens with the schools before he, you know, just kind of goes back into opening up completely. He's not thinking of doing kids programs until maybe after the new year. But we have grace groups that are starting up this fall, so that's nice because that's giving us a way to connect with each other. Some are virtual and some are in person. So yeah, but it's hard. You grow weary of not having people out there, you know, when they are there, like on Sunday, it's just, the energy is just so different, you know, when there's people in the room worshiping, and there usually is some, but it's just not the same. But and we've had our complete worship team and tech team the whole time they've been that we've been streaming. They've been all coming in. I do have 2 vocalists that will not sing right now. They just, one got COVID, her and her husband both, and so I have no idea when I'll see her again. She's better. They're better, but yeah, and then the other one is, yeah, just has no desire to come in and be around people. So those 2, I, you know, don't have any extra vocalists now. We pretty much have our team, and when someone's gone, we don't have that instrument, or, you know, we're out of harmony. You know, I've got 1 harmony singer now. So, and we've grown our tech team because we didn't stream prior to this. So we had to get all the equipment and another whole team to help with, you know, doing that. Another sound person and another camera person. So, so that's been good. But as far as what God's saying to me, you know, I kind of, it's similar to what you said, Dave, that I think God's just trying to tell me to just continue to be patient. You know, as much as I want things to be different and I want our pastor to encourage everyone to come back in, and, you know, not that, you know, we can jump in full force with kids and everything, but, you know, just to be patient and wait and trust and hope. And that was, I shared the scripture when this past Sunday when our church was there, out of Lamentations chapter 3, just to, you know, just keep waiting and hoping and trusting during this time when we're all growing weary, you know, of this whole thing. And so, yeah.
That's good. We've been having this recurring theme, my wife and I, in the last several days in our devotions, about it's Romans 5 or 6, somewhere in there, about suffering produces hope. Suffering produces perseverance, produces character, produces hope. You know, that's the progression that's listed out there. And I'm like, there's this tension in waiting and being patient for hope to show up.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, we're suffering. Okay, it's growing our perseverance. It's growing our character. Like, but ready for hope. Ready for hope to break through. And I think it's more of like it's ready for hope to, you know, it's kind of like when you plant a seed in the ground, you're like staring at the dirt for a long time. Come on, little buddy. I know you're in there. You know, do your thing. So, but the waiting is hard. So, yeah, get that.
Mindy, how do you care for the vocalists that have gone? Like, do you feel a sense of like I should follow up with them? Are they just like taking time off? Like, do you
Yeah,
have like,
nothing on a regular basis. I do check in with them. The one is a school teacher, and so, you know, definitely just touch base with her recently, because like she doesn't even want to go back to teaching, but she has to do that. And she's doing a hybrid program where, yeah, some days she's in the classroom, some days she's not. And so, yeah, I mean, I touch base with them every once in a while just to kind of see, because they don't even obviously come to church. So,
yeah.
yeah, just kind of touch base with them every, you know, couple of months, I guess, throughout this whole thing, and just kind of see how they're doing. And yeah, try to. We have done Zoom meetings too, and that was more back when we weren't, you know, together. So kind of did that early on to try to keep them connected that way.
Yeah.
So. And in July, around the July 4th holiday, I had a cookout at my house, and we were all outside, and a lot of them came to that and got to connect there. So that was nice too.
Yeah. Who's next? Is Kara, Kevin?
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, we are very blessed and fortunate that prior to COVID, about three or 4 years ago, my pastor and I, we sat down and made a plan to live stream our services. And he's a very visionary driven guy. So he really likes to kind of look at what's next, plan ahead 5-10 years out down the road. And, you know, he has said multiple times, he had no way of knowing that COVID was going to happen. Nobody did, but, you know, just at least being able to think through what would happen if, you know, the church came to a point that they could no longer meet on Sunday mornings. So our live streaming numbers were always very low, and a lot of our leadership questioned, you know, why we were live streaming and why we were investing so much time and money and everything else into it. And, you know, it was kind of an immediate answer right there as soon as they were able to see, you know, why and the outcome of that. So we only went down, we actually never stopped live streaming. We just didn't have much of a worship team during COVID. So that aspect with the worship team and the tech team and everything, we've just been, you know, going strong straight through. But then we started live services, people back into our building the first week of July, and started pretty slow there, had about a third, but now we're probably back up to about a half of our people. Still have a good group on live stream, those who are not going to come back out probably anytime soon. But we just recently, at the beginning of August, started a modified children's program, and that's allowing a lot more people to come out and have kids and want to just get their kids involved and plugged in somewhere. So we have 2 large spaces that the kids are in. They're all socially distanced, and then everybody else that's in the main auditorium is also socially distanced. Masks are required entering and exiting, but not actually in the sitting down while we're singing. And for the worship team on stage, we're not wearing them. But yeah, I mean, just really grateful for the direction that God led us, and then how he's continued to give us the next steps to take, and where to go. And I kind of feel like that's where even God's calling us right now is, like I said, our pastor's very visionary and wants to, just really kind of plan what our next steps are. He doesn't like to dwell in the, oh, it's a shame we only have half our congregation. Yeah, that's definitely a shame, but he's very driven to find what the next way that we can plug into new people. And so because we have a live stream that's well established, he wants to get that kind of involved in some of the retirement homes in our area, some of the prisons, other ways that we can reach out to other people who maybe are not going to be able to come out anytime soon, and see how else we can engage and reach out to those people that are in our community. Because there's just so many people who weren't going to church in the first place, and now it's not even a consideration. They're not even going to be there for Christmas and Easter. So finding ways to be able to reach those people and engage people that are not a regular part of our congregation, as well as still maintaining the connections that we have with our people. So yeah,
Really interesting thought. The C&E Christians are maybe off the books. Yeah. Cool. Kara, Kevin, with the 2 Ks left.
Kara, go ahead.
Jim, sorry.
Yeah, so I think we're a lot like Nicole, where we meet in a school, and so we have actually no choice. Our schools are still closed, so we cannot meet, and we've been doing online services since then. Early on, worship looked a lot different. It was just myself, and fortunately I'm married to a guy who plays guitar and sings as well, so we just picked up our guitars and we were hanging out in our living room and in our kitchen sometimes and just recording online. So that was a learning curve and experience that our entire lighting and sound and music team all in one. So it gave me a huge appreciation for our tech team. It was super stressful and probably tested our marriage more than it probably should have as well. So yeah. So now, I went to our church offices, and I did set up a room where we could record, and everything is set up, where we can just kind of plug in and roll with it. So it's much easier now, and we can have a couple more people join us from the worship team. So we rotate through, like, our drummers just playing a little percussion, mostly like just a cajon, maybe some keys, maybe a bass player, just kind of trying to rotate a little bit and get some people involved again, since for so long it was just a couple of us. So but again, it's not a huge room, so we have to be careful about like how many people we have in there, and trying to keep the camera angle so that we have enough space to fit everybody, but we're not on each other's laps or anything. We have actually once a month we do a deeper worship and prayer as well, and that's again still online. And then our pastor does a daily kind of 5-minute online as well. So that's what all of our gatherings look like at the moment, but they're all online. So
And you guys decided already to not meet before next year, right?
we did, yeah. We're not going to have any services until in-person services until next year. So but again, it's kind of not as much our choice as the counties, just with the school system being closed, we just don't have a space available to us that we can use. So
Where do you live, Sarah?
so we're Northern Virginia.
Oh, that's
The
right.
church meets in Arlington. Yeah. So and so yeah, that's our worship team. Like I said, we're kind of now able to rotate some people through, but the tech team has really not done much. There's just nothing. Yeah. there's no space where we're still acting as our tech team as well as worship. It's just a little bit easier now that I have a space actually set for that, and it's not just in my home. But okay, so that's gonna throw me off, Chris. A beautiful baby. I'm done. That's amazing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break
I
it. I'm
love
sorry.
it. That's amazing. Oh, how much joy. Okay, that's beautiful. Okay. And so last one, what is God saying about significant shifts or themes? In this space that we're in, we've been incredibly focused right now on racial reconciliation. So we have a lot of those kind of themes throughout our Bible studies and our services, and our, even just staff studies. So that has our Thursday night worships. Yeah, it's been a lot of those theme specifically. And it seems as though that's going to kind of take precedence here for a while. So yeah, that's just kind of where I think it's a lot of the area that we live in, being so close to DC. We're very political, very transient area, but very politics driven. Not the church necessarily, not us necessarily, but that's who our congregation is. That's who we're around. So yeah, that's.
Kara, the thing that your pastor's doing, the 5-minute things, do you think he'll continue to do those after people are allowed to go back and meeting in person regularly, or?
It's a really good question. I think so. It's been obviously it's a lot more on his plate, but I think he really feels kind of passionate about trying to touch people consistently throughout the week and not just on Sunday morning. So I think so.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of guys, one in particular I'm thinking of, that said he kind of almost wished he hadn't done it so regularly, because now he's like has to do it for the rest of his life.
Right.
So, but people have really appreciated it. I think that's probably true, that people want to hear from their pastor more often than just Sunday morning. So it's probably a good thing.
Agreed.
Was Matt on 121 or something like that now?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, my husband Kara does he calls it a nugget 5-minute thing. I had a woman come in, she's like, I love the golden nugget your husband does. I'm like, that's awesome.
That's so cute.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, he's like, and no worries, I have hundreds of them. Like, I'm not running out anytime soon.
That's great.
It is interesting to, in as much as that kind of connectedness is happening, where there is more speaking into your daily life, it's not some necessarily like you're reading an online, devotional that you get, like your pastor is actually giving you something every day. That is an interesting, like Life Center, my second home church, they do like a daily email as well, and I don't listen to very many of them, but the ones that I do are really encouraging. And that just like creating that content, having that content available is really, I think there might be something in that in the future. So, and what I love about them is that their entire staff does it. It's never just one person. It's just the entire staff is sharing different things. Different worship leaders are sharing, different pastors, kids, adults, everything. Everybody's getting in on the action, so it's really cool. Kevin, James.
James, why don't you go?
That was almost a joke, Kevin James. I just watched Hitch the other night.
Funny, I think James should go because when I start talking, it could go off track a little bit. So, James, go ahead.
Kidding me?
Well,
Cut it out.
you're going to have to remind me what the questions are because my iPad crapped out in the middle of that last one. So,
All right, so
it's done. It's its fourth Zoom meeting of the day. My iPad can't do it anymore.
what are your weekly gatherings like? How is your worship and tech team involved? And what's God saying about any significant shifts or themes?
Cool. Well, our weekly gatherings have recently shifted. We were doing only online, and so that involved the worship team doing some recording from remote locations, and then I would compile it into a song, like mix everybody's parts together to try to give it so people could still contribute, which turned out, I think Nicole and I talked about this when we first started, it turned out to be way more work than I planned, but much like your previous comment, once you establish it, the expectation is there. So for a few weeks in a row, probably about 10 or 12 weeks, they got one every week. And then I told them, if we're going to start meeting in person, you're going to have to deal with every other week or it's just too much. So that was good for a while. Now we're doing a parking lot service, which is actually really nice because the church is in the city. And so there's a good amount of space where we can bring everybody, get everybody together. They've been marking little things like with chalk on the ground for people to set up so that they can stay apart. And I think my favorite thing about that, which I think might kind of answer the last question a little bit, but my favorite thing is we're a large church as far as a variety of worship. There's a large traditional service, a large contemporary service, and a Spanish service. And we've been able to incorporate that into one Sunday morning gathering, which I think is great because it exposes everybody to everything. And it helps them identify that being a part of this church is being a part of this whole church and not just the service that you go to and the people that you know, which has been a big issue for them over the years. I've only been there for a year and a half now. So it's been something that they've struggled with, is keeping everybody included with everybody else. So I'm hopeful about that. That's what my rant was about, by the way, Dave. I was ranting about how they don't do enough of that. But
Was it in Spanish?
no bueno. My Spanish is no bueno.
You and Kevin have one phrase.
Oh, I can say biblioteca. That's library. It's not really a phrase, but
Donde está el baño?
there you go. There you go. And the middle question, the tech team, actually, it's been really cool because we've had some personnel changes leading up to the quarantine that I thought would have made this difficult. And I've had a lot of people step up and offer to help as far as like making videos, like editing, putting lyrics to videos, doing stuff. And so we've expanded from what was a tech team of a few to incorporate, again, because we're kind of borrowing from every service. It's just become a large group of about 30 people between pastors, musicians, and tech team that are working together weekly to create an online service that goes out. And so it's done kind of like some other people have said, it's had some success. So to continue doing it seems to be the future, even if it has to be altered when we go back or like fully go back. But it's clearly reaching people and it's clearly effective. And so putting the time into it and the efforts is worth it. It's just, how do we do that once we go back? Because it's a lot of, it's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of people having to do extra work to make things happen. And most of these people are volunteers. So yeah. I appreciate them greatly. And they do things that I don't know how to do as far as video editing and stuff like that. But I can't ask this of them all year. So we're going to have to figure out what people can do. And to kind of touch on the last question, I'm trying to stall so Kevin has time to get off task. To touch on the last question, I'm really hopeful. It's kind of a personal one, but also to my role with the church.
I've noticed that this time frame has helped make things a little more obvious, like what matters and how short time really is in that sense. In the idea that, you know, if you don't do the things that you think you want to do or should do, you kind of run out of the chance to do them. And sometimes in the day-to-day, it doesn't feel that way because you're just going through it every day and whatever. But when something like this happens, at least for me, it's really shifted about like, where do I put my priorities when it comes to handling different stuff, just in life and other things. And so as we're looking at getting back together in person in November, to credit my rant, I've really been putting a focus on how do you want to reopen, because you really have a chance to not reinvent yourself, but you can do whatever you want right now. So any cultural habits that you didn't like or things you never felt you could get out of as far as what the church is doing or how we're approaching certain things, we can just start fresh and just put it in place. And so are we really taking the full advantage of this opportunity as far as seeing the things that really matter and the needs that our congregation has and the extension of our congregation, our community, and actually inventing a service when we come back together that meets those needs? Or are we just going to kind of go back to routine because we're allowed to again? And so I've been trying to challenge myself first with just my regular life and everything in between. But I've been trying to challenge the staff of like not going back to normal, because I think somebody else said it. It might have been Nicole, but normal wasn't working. I don't know who said it, but normal wasn't working. And so this is a chance to do something different. And I think it will read what you choose to do will become evident to people when they come back and they say, oh, you know, whether or not it was intentional, this is what you're saying. You're saying this is a priority and this isn't, you know, based on what you choose to do. So I think everybody is kind of forced to evaluate their priorities and make decisions based on how honest they want to be with those priorities.
That's good, man. That's good.
Where are you at, James? What town? What church are you at?
I am on staff at First United Methodist in Lancaster City, but I also work with Adlib for a handful of churches, helping them kind of in their phases of reopening and doing other things. So mostly based around Lancaster County. But I heard somebody say Nova, Northern Virginia, and I used to live down that way, so I miss it. I'm jealous.
You miss all of our traffic?
But that's the one thing I don't miss. When I used to visit home in Philadelphia,
Terrible,
I would leave overnight at like 9:30, 11 o'clock, so I could get here at like 3 a.m, but not hit any traffic. That was the best.
Sure.
No, I just love that area. Not to get off topic, but it's just absolutely gorgeous down there. So
You're early.
It's a great spot.
Yeah.
Jim, can I ask you something, like, or maybe just tag off of something that you said that I thought was really key, and what we're doing as we go back to reopen and what we've been I don't know, the idea of continuing our online presence for those of us that weren't doing it, not just live streaming, but that's the thing that we're revisiting, because we've just been live streaming. It's me with my phone, aiming it, pressing the button, going up there and leading worship. And hopefully people remember when they go for prayer that thing is on. You know, it's just, it's a mess, but at least we're doing it. But I think we just came to the realization that there are people that are not coming back for good reasons, health reasons. So how do we now care for them in a more intentional way than just aiming a phone at, you know? So I'd be interested to hear, not now, maybe another time, but how, you know, we did a lot of things in order to provide an online presence. And we think, I think we thought once we reopened, we would let people kind of look in. But I don't know that is ministering to them as it did when we were posting a video that we had edited to some degree and then interacting with people as they watch it if we premiere it or something. So we're just revisiting that, like, how do we, it's more work, it's another service during the week, but how do we care for people online that, you know? So anyway, that's something that when you said that, I was interested.
Well, I mean, I'd love to hear anybody's thoughts on this, because I think it's relevant to anyone who's implemented an online service of any kind has had to make drastic adjustments. So I think it's great to start a dialogue anyway. I can tell you that from our staff meeting conversations, I, along with 2 other people on the team, have shifted the focus of saying, if we're going to continue this, it's a separate service. And like, so we have our goals for a Sunday morning gathering, but almost like if you had a traditional service, you plan it a certain way and try, your goals are different for engagement, just as an example, than if you plan a contemporary service. And so our desire to maintain the online service has been, what are the goals of an online service, and how can we structure the content that goes into it to achieve those goals? So we're not worried about necessarily making it feel like a Sunday morning anymore, because that's for the people who are coming, you know, not to say that tough luck, it's not what I mean, but for the people who are coming, they're coming because they want that kind of engagement back in, or they're comfortable with that. And for the people who are staying home, you know, like you said, for good reasons. And I'm, you know, Dave and I have had a lot of conversations about this stuff. I err on the side of caution myself, but gearing the service to be an online service. So it has nothing, almost little to no overlap with what happens physically on a Sunday morning. And the content is geared towards, if you came on Sunday morning, you could still watch the online service. You wouldn't get the sense of just, oh, I was already there, I don't need to watch it again. It's kind of its own experience.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think of Liquid Church in New Jersey. I sold my email address to them to give me a T-shirt. There's more to that story, but what struck me about them is that they actually have an online pastor. Like this guy who I get emails from now he is their online pastor. And I don't know what all he does, but I think there's definitely that could and should be part of the conversation. You know, if that's a whole new revenue stream, to use a business term, right? It's a whole new service that you're doing. It's a whole new community you're reaching. You're doing a Spanish service, you're doing a traditional service, you're doing an online service. They're all different. You know? I think there's got to be wisdom in creating something that is designed for the experience of how it's consumed, or how it's interacted with. Because if it's just what happened in the room, like I think we're all realizing that what happens for the front in the room is not church altogether. There's the person that comes up to you afterwards and has a conversation and prays for you that changes your life. That was pretty significant, you know? Like there was a moment in worship where you looked over, you saw somebody, and God did something in your heart, and it broke something in you. Like you went to the bathroom, you bumped into somebody, and you started talking. You sit out in the lobby talking for 15 minutes, missed the sermon, and it was really helpful. It really encouraged you. Like that's all part of the church experience that the online thing can't ever touch. You know, except by chatting, but that's not exactly the same. So, yeah, I think it's a big question for what's next with the online piece.
My turn.
Yep.
Okay, good. One of the things that we're doing is, as a church, is we sort of.
And we're out of time. Thanks, Kevin, for sharing.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Dave.
Ruthless. He's ruthless.
Our church is in very much of a transition right now, because we recently had our lead pastor just resigned very suddenly. He only gave about 3 weeks notice, and they hadn't yet replaced me when I left last year as the worship director. So I was doing admin for worship online for the last year, and they asked me to come back and help with stabilizing things. And one of the things that we're doing as we've come back together is we decided to reinvent ourselves a little bit, because before we used to have a traditional service and a modern service, and what the elders had wanted to do, and the pastor that left had also wanted to do for the longest time, was to bring it together into one service, but they didn't exactly know how. And this gave them the reason to say, hey, all bets are off now. We're going to do it the way we want to do it when we come back. And so we're reinvented, and now we're doing what's, I guess you'd call it a layered service, because nobody likes blended. We're doing a layered service. That's Dave's word.
That's actually Sean Kreiner's word.
Okay. So we're using different elements than we would have used in either of the services together. And so I think it's working okay. Every week I do get some kind of complaint from one side or the other. They're usually reasonably well put and well-intentioned criticisms. They're constructive criticism, I'll call it that. And so I have gotten that, but you know, I just basically tell them, look, it's a work in progress. We got to figure it out and how to do it. And it's not necessarily just going to, you know, be something that everybody likes right away. So, you know, we're working at that. Our tech team is involved heavily because we've been trying to make our what we used to do online would have been maybe an Easter service or a Good Friday or something like that, a special time we would do it. We did it with a Meebo camera and we hooked it into our soundboard, and we never really had a good mix. We're working at it every week, and every week it gets a little bit better. So we're improving every week on that. And then what God is saying to us, I think our whole church, is don't be discouraged. Like when the lead pastor suddenly resigned, I think everybody was kind of looking around at each other like, what are we going to do? Like this place is snake bit. Now they're going to get the right guy this time, I'm convinced. So, but people are actually not discouraged. They're kind of excited about the possible new changes. And so I'm kind of pumped about how the attitude has changed just in the last 5 or 6 weeks since I've been here. I'm glad to see their attitudes turning around a little bit. And so I think we're going to be okay. And that's kind of a really good feeling from when I first came here. I was thinking, you know, I hope I'm not getting this worship leader guy into a job that he's going to be out of a job next year because the church is going to fail. So anyway, it seems really good. And I didn't really necessarily think it was going to go way off track, what I was going to share with you guys today, but we're doing outdoor services too, September 20th, 27th, and October 4th. And that's to accommodate some people who are afraid to come if it's indoors. And so we're trying to accommodate, and yet I'm not sure if it's enough. Like you said, Nicole, I think we have to find a way to reach out to those people that are just not going to come back. And so what are we going to do? Are they still going to be part of our church? Are we going to care about them? Or are we going to just say, hey, you don't want to come? Too bad. That's your problem. So we have to figure it out. And I'd like to hear what some people think we can do for, you know, the church, the marginalized people in the church, the people that say, I don't care if I go or not, or, hey, it's really easy for me to just get up and watch church in my pajamas and drink my coffee and eat my Danish while I'm, you know, watching church on my computer screen or phone. And so, you know, what are we going to do? And do we care? Or we just say those are just people that were marginally involved in the first place, and so there's other people to replace them? I don't know. How do you guys think?
They were just churchgoers, which is the weirdest term in the world.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
That's not.
Maybe they were, though.
Well, it's possible.
Yeah.
Okay, you wait. This is what I'm trying to learn and rest in, is there is a sifting, and we're beginning to understand who we are and what our faith really is. And you know, what is eternal is going to last. It's going to stay. I think it's okay for some people to go. I had one girl go, man, I've grown up in church my whole life, super dedicated, everything. But she's like, it's really nice to sleep in on a Sunday morning. I'm like, yeah, she works full time. She was in school and all that. I don't begrudge people the time, but there's going to come a time where they're either going to feel the weight of that, going, oh, I really need people, and they'll come back, or they'll be like, I'm really good. You know, we're not to give up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing. So are there other ways to gather? That's what I want to know. There are people that will not come to a gathering, but they will meet one-on-one. And so to mobilize our people to reach out to people who are not coming and saying, if they're still willing to meet one-on-one or out in public, then we go after them that way. And more often, they're just so thankful for the connection. If I can get away from what do we do to get them here on Sunday morning and go, what do we do to get them connected to the body? that's hard. It's a shift, because then that means everybody plays. So helping people realize it's a one another game. It's not, you know, I praise God I'm not paid, because I can tell them, listen, we're all in this. Like, it's not just the paid professionals, it's all of us, you know, doing the one another stuff. So I'm not upset about people that don't come for a while. I think it's okay to go. It is great to sleep in. It's great to explore and do other things. But what happens when that hunger comes, or doesn't?
Yeah. Dave, your fertilizer today was about that, right? And I breezed over it quickly. What do you have to say about the absence of gathering? Like, I didn't study it, so.
I mean, I was basically saying that I think there's a growing trend of what we're talking about, that people are just fine at bedside assemblies, as Jim said. There is, I don't know, like, you know, church in the U.S. had become very largely consumerist. You know, I go to the church that I dig, and, you know, do they have a good kids program or not? You know, and every time I hear, yeah, our families aren't coming back because there's no kids ministry, I'm like, what the heck? That's a problem. You know, that families will not come to church if they don't have kids ministry. What? Like, in the consumerist American perspective, it makes complete sense. But in the global church, the underground church, the hidden church, the persecuted church, shut up, to quote Nicole. Shut up. It doesn't, like, it's an indicator of something is wrong, is out. And so to me, it feels like, it feels like what Nicole said. My goal, the church's goal, isn't to be like, how can we get you to come on Sundays? It's how can we still be a body? Because you can't be a foot if you're stuck in the freezer, right? Like, you can't be a member of the body if there's no contact, you know. So I get that we've been through a really wrecking season where there's been physical distancing mandated upon us, but that's not eternal. And for some people, it'll linger a lot longer than others. I get that, but yeah, we have to figure out how to do it. And again, God's not up there going, "Oh, myself." That's not what's happening. So, yeah, I was hoping I was going to ask the question, if you read the fertilizer today, if it felt too punchy or too harsh. So that wasn't my intent, obviously, but I don't want people thinking that, no, it's good. I'm good. Sip my coffee, browse other websites while, you know, things are happening. Like, that's just, no. That's not enough. That's not going to, and they'll know. Like you said, if and when the hunger hits, like, yeah, you know what, this is not enough. So
I love Nicole's phrase of, it's not my job to plan a, you know, to make them need to show up like this. I'm got the quote completely wrong, but I'll get it right one day. But I really think the idea there is to not create something, whether it's the way you design your service or literally the smallest details as things boil down, but is to do things because they're important to your congregation, because they're important to your identity, whether it's specific to you or whether it's to the group, you know, that identifies with the building or whatever it is. But instead of doing things to cater to people, because as Kevin said when he started talking about, like, you know, nobody likes the term blended, like, we do all kinds of stuff to make other people feel better about it, or to convince people it's worth being a part of. Like, oh, well, you really want traditional music, but, you know, we have to have some of the other stuff, so let's just make it fit everybody. Like, I've dealt with this so many times with so many congregations, that when you try to make everybody happy all at the same time, and we get it in certain areas, in certain aspects of life, we understand that this applies, but I really think it applies to everything. When you try to make everybody happy, you really just don't make anybody happy. So if you schedule your Sunday morning, if you structure it in a way where the people who are choosing to come are fed and cared for and can have that kind of engagement and do those things, then it was there for them. And the people who you're trying to win over, they're not going to be happy anyway, because at the first alternative, like you said, the girl who wants to sleep in, like there's options that they prefer. And so when we try to structure things to just try to convince everybody it's worth coming, I think we shoot ourselves in the foot, because we not only don't do the things that are priorities to us, but we find ourselves upset when it doesn't work. And I think that's a big tell, when you feel like, oh, we did all this and only 20 people came. Like, well, why didn't you do things that were special to those 20 people? Why did you do things trying to get 100 people to come? You know, the authenticity really reads. And if you stick to just doing what you feel called about by who you are, who God has made your congregation to be in that season of life, I just feel like it's much more impactful for the people who are there.
Yeah, that's good. Kevin, what's your church back home in Houston doing?
Say it again. What's
your church back home in Houston doing?
they are actually just went back to meeting in person. Last Sunday was the first they were back in session. They have a huge building, so they have socially distanced seating inside, and they're having people come in with masks in the door, but once they get in, they can take their mask off once they're seated. They're fogging the seats with hydrogen peroxide solution between services. I was actually doing that before when we opened the first time and before we reclosed, and I was one of the people doing that, and I asked the executive pastor was walking by one time when I was doing that. I said, "Do you think this really does any good?" And he said, "Not necessarily, but it looks good." So I think, if you're making people feel better about it, it's kind of like for me, I think the masks don't do any good whatsoever, but if it makes somebody else feel better, I'll wear a mask, So that's kind of how I think it was with even doing the stuff that we do between the services and all that. It seems like people are going to get it or they're not. And, we can do what we can to follow the guidelines of washing our hands and not, coughing in people's faces and licking their eyeballs or anything. So,
No holy kisses.
Yeah. So, but they're actually going back to opening now, and they've done a special service on a Thursday night for COVID sensitive people, where everybody that comes in, like they're supposed to be, like if they feel like they might be physically vulnerable, everybody's going to be wearing a mask. Everybody's getting their temperature taken before they come in. And it's probably only 150 or 200 people are going to come to that out of, a couple thousand that go there. So, but it is specifically for people who are afraid of the virus. They have a service and everybody's masked up the whole time except for the people on stage. So it makes another time for the pastor to speak and another time for the worship team to have to be there. But it seems like it's been well received and people are appreciating that they're taking their thoughts into consideration because they're afraid. So,
Yeah. Well, it back to what Nicole said at the beginning, like it's on us leading to be really sensitive to what God is saying, which is kind of like, duh, but like, there were so many things that were already, set. And we're doing this church thing in this wild context. We were just reading this morning of how when Jesus first came in and was doing his first couple of miracles, and some of the Pharisees were like, hearing like, yeah, there's something really good about this man, and some was like, we got to kill him, like because he's leading people astray, and I was like, doesn't that sound like what people are saying about the presidential candidates? Like, ask different people and they're going to say the same thing about each other, right? Like, and that's not a reflect. That's not. I'm not saying that to say about politics or saying that they're Jesus or anything crazy like that. I'm saying people are people, and the people at our churches are wildly different in their responses to this moment right now. You know, like I'm not coming close, or like, hey, you know, and it's really easy to get drug around as leaders by those perceptions or our own perceptions. And what is the most important is God. What? And then like do it. So
Yeah.
does anybody have anything else to say?
I just wanted to say that I think, you know, obviously we need to be in prayer for our church, you know, about these things that we've talked about today with, you know, there are some who aren't comfortable coming right now. And I get that. We get that. They're not all going to come back. But, you know, hopefully their heart is still that they wish they were comfortable coming back, that they wish they were there with us. And so, you know, they are tuning into the stream and they are still trying to do their best to worship in their home, you know. But when you hear, you know, I just love sleeping in, or, you know, like you mentioned, Nicole, it's that like hurts my heart because it's priorities have kind of gotten out of whack, you know, with that. And so I think we need to be praying that they desire and they long to be gathered again together, because like I don't think your fertilizer was too bold at all, Dave. I think that's the Bible. It says do not forsake. There's a reason for the coming together and meeting together, and we know that, and they know that. It's just, I think it just becomes comfortable, or just as people, you know, do start to skip church and leave, it gets easier and easier and easier, even before COVID hit, you know, when people would fall away from attending, and then pretty soon they don't even think about it anymore. And, you know, so I think it's kind of that same way with us, unfortunately. So.
Yeah. And I've never been the kind of person who's been a part of a church that was, you know, kind of like tracking your attendance and like getting a call from the pastor. Like I've seen you out there lately. You know, that's not the vibe at all. I'm just like, listen, you know, God knows what He's doing, and He calls us to do something together as a body. It's important that we show up.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the prayer piece is the right response. It's, you know, one of the things I've been doing starting this week, so it's only been 3 days, but it's been really, really helpful, is like first 30. So when I go to and start working, whatever time that is, the first half an hour of that time, I'm just going to be praying. So asking for whatever different things that I'm praying for, but you know, kind of like a way for me to do something that's proactive and intentional to get myself in a more God conscious place. And it's been really helpful. In addition to like my other like devotional prayer stuff. Anyway.
Thanks, Dave.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Paul, Kara, James.
So good to meet you guys.
Yeah, you too, Kara.
It's really nice.
Take care, guys.
Good to see you, Jen.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.